All right, so I was thinking about the hierarchy of needs, um, psychological evolution, not over the course of thousands of years, but over the course of the individual's life, and not so much in a way where um, one is being diagnosed by a professional, but more so through the observation of oneself. Uh, when I observe my own self and my own progress, uh, I can see stages in along the path, um, and I guess maybe to some extent they can be described per stage. Like one example, and it may be a poor example, but the only thing I can think of right now is kind of how the younger you are, you're kind of just high off of life, you know. Like at some point, balloons make you happy, colors and shapes make you happy, but then it gets to a point where you're able to be more physical. So you want to run and you want to jump off of things. You want to play on the monkey bars, and you want to do more physical activities. And you want to ride bikes up and down mountains and BMX or whatever, sports, you name it. And then you grow into your. I think I went over this a little bit. You grow into your coming of age, and your biology changes, but that's just how the stages kind of work, for example. But what I'm thinking more is kind of like character development. Uh, how I've mentioned before that I used to live in a box. I used to feel very limited because I either had the lack of vision on how to go forward, or I didn't think that I could. But along the way, I began to find openings. I was presented with new ideas that gave me something new to work with, and I found a way out. And I'm not all the way out, but I'm noting progress, and I'm thinking about who I am becoming. And I guess, like, I don't know, you know if you've watched any of these videos, I think you would probably know that I'm worried about the copyright issues. But the food pyramid, on the bottom, if I understand correctly, is vegetation, like it's produce, is lettuce, tomatoes, cucumbers, mangoes, papaya, berries, oranges, you name it, right? And then you go up, and your wheats and grains, your fats, sugars, salts. But so on the bottom of the hierarchy of needs, if I understand correctly, you got to eat, drink, sleep, use you got to be able to relieve yourself, and you ascend up to a point where you start thinking about community. You start thinking about how you can find those things regularly, and then you start thinking about how to organize a community, and you learn your place in the community, and then you can focus on your own creativity, and then you can self-actualize. And I just got done watching a video by C Boogie, so I would like to give recognition to him. That's one thing I've been hearing him talk about lately is self-actualization, getting to that psychological stage where I guess I don't understand. I don't know the exact way that self-actualization is described in the world of psychology, but at least as far as my own observation goes, it's like finding out who I am and being able to sincerely go down the path that will give me the most meaning and fulfillment in my life. But that self-actualization is found through repeating the cycle of starting from the bottom and evolving, starting from the bottom and evolving. Like every day when I wake up, it's got to get something to eat, You know, assume you get a nice night of rest the night before. Wake up, eat, use the restroom, shower. You know, we live in a modern world, and if you're lucky enough, if you're fortunate enough, if things are on your side, then you know you don't have to worry about having a place to stay, but you got to go to your job and you got to do what you need to do to make sure that you keep your place to stay and that you can keep the regularity. I mean, society's already pretty well established, so I mean, you just got to learn how to stay in bounds. Um, then I think many of us we hit a peak, like we hit a ceiling and we don't know where to go, so we get frustrated, you know, because it's almost like because of modern society, we skip many of the stages, so we get straight to this stage that I don't know how to describe that in a way allows us, I don't want to say triggered, I kind of want to say triggered, but I don't know if that's the right word, but it puts us in a space where we bypass so many things that it's like we don't know what to do next. We get frustrated. And so maybe we turn to things like substances or bad habits, but those are just attempts to remedy this intellectual and philosophical frustration that we have. You know, you hear people say, you know, what are you so upset about? You got it good. You don't live in a third world country, assuming you don't actually live in a third world country. But, you know, I can say for myself, at some point, I realized that it's not about the fact that I don't have water that I can drink. It's not about the fact that I don't have a place where I can get away from the elements. It became an intellectual frustration. I became frustrated and I felt like I reached the ceiling because I think that as a human, I can't stop growing. I mean, like, I can't. I don't think it's an option. I think complacency, although I enjoy it and I do believe I found it, and in many ways I'm still complacent. I see if I want to continue to exist in this world, I am going to have to acquire a new skill and move forward and consume information and adjust. But many of us don't know how, we don't know where to go. And so we just follow the crowd, um, and we follow it to a dead end, or we follow it in a direction only to find that this isn't the direction that we wanted to go. And so when we find that, we might even form a bit of resentment towards whatever. I can't say what because it's like it's not what you thought it was, it's not what you wanted it to be. And you know, it's kind of like this idea. I don't know if I've talked about it at all yet of how love and hate come from a similar place, as opposed to. I mean, I've heard it be said that love and hate come from the same place, but I've also heard it be said that love and hate are complete opposites. Now, if they're coming from the same place, depending on if you're following me, you know, both sides can be argued. But the idea is that the correlation I'm trying to make is you can really have a distaste for somebody that can be recognized as a hate because of how much you used to love them, and you've become so like, I made this analogy earlier. If somebody broke into your house and took something, you would be mad, but you would be like, well, it's a stranger. I don't know who did it. So I just know that that's something that exists in the world. So I'll move on. But if it's somebody that you trust and is in your world on a regular basis, if you find out it's them, you're going to be extra upset because, hey, man, I trusted you and you betrayed me. So it's like, hey, I followed you and you let me down. I was frustrated. I let you guide me and you led me to the slaughterhouse. Figuratively speaking, maybe sometimes literally speaking. But anyways, you know, it's coming up on 10 minutes here, so you know, maybe I'll try to talk on this further in another video. But you know, I just wanted to recognize to whom it may concern this idea of psychological evolution as it pertains to self-observation, because I'm sure that a clinical professional may get something totally different from what I'm saying, or may interpret what I'm saying as me trying to say something else, or maybe I won't sound like I know what I'm talking about. But anyways, I guess the last thing I'll say is with this psychological evolution and recognizing the stages, I feel inclined to include philosophy in there somewhere, because as you evolve psychologically, so too do you evolve philosophically. If I've found my philosophies have changed accordingly with each stage in my life. But anyways, I'm gonna watch this video again and hope it made some sense.